All right, let's talk about the implications of the new election plans as announced this afternoon by the Independent Electoral Commission. This will be our country's first pandemic poll, and while many other nations have held elections in the past 18 months, the risk of COVID-19 does complicate matters. Let's discuss this now with Lulu White, founder and CEO of the Elections Management Consulting Agency of Africa. Ms. White, thank you so much for joining us this evening. There's already quite a contested space, and that is this decision by the IEC that they can reopen the candidate list process. The DA is already threatening to take them to court. They say it's totally favouring the ANC, but the IEC is saying it is perfectly within their rights. If you look at section 19.3 of the Constitution, it is in their rights, and that opening up voter registration thereby means you have to reopen candidate lists as well. I wonder what your view is of their decision. Do you think they've made the right call?
Good evening. Look, in terms of the law, the IEC is actually correct to say that they are within their legal right, within their legal mandate to amend an election timetable if it's so necessary. If we take a look also at the judgment that was given on Friday, in as much as it invalidated the nation. Furthermore, then it also made a provision that should it be necessary, then the IEC is at liberty to also apply section 24(11)(2) that basically says that the IEC, I do not think that the intention by the IEC to extend or to amend the voting, the timetable was with the intention to benefit one political party. The election timetable parties that have an interest in participating in these local government elections.
We are battling a little with your line, Ms. White. I'm going to try and carry on and hope that the line improves. The IEC mentioned special votes as well this afternoon, and they said that they're going to take on greater importance. Do you expect that we're going to see more people perhaps becoming eligible for these special votes because of the pandemic?
I do believe that there is a possibility that the IEC is going to experience a large application for especially from people that are currently living with pre-existing conditions, people who will basically be too concerned and too worried about their health and the possibility of contracting the COVID-19 virus in the long queue while they're trying to exercise their votes. So I do believe that there is an expectation, and I would like to also hope that the IEC is already prepared for that possibility.
We do know that on the 20th of September, the COGTA minister is going to announce the elections, and it's anywhere between the 27th and the 1st. Do you think it's a possibility that they might consider running the elections over 2 or even 3 days, also to thin out the queues?
I doubt it very much. The Minister of COGTA is obviously going to be closing or proclaiming the election and closing the voters' roll. I do not believe that the IEC is able to actually get to a situation where they're going to extend voting for more than 1 day. I think the election, the date and the voting day for the election is actually one that is set by the law, by the Constitution, and the IEC does not have the mandate to move past that one particular date. I think, though, what may happen is that voting hours may be longer than what we're probably accustomed to. But I don't foresee the IEC actually saying they're going to extend voting for another day. It may actually compromise the integrity of the vote if that actually does happen.
Do you agree with the IEC when they say they're still fairly confident that they are able to hold a free and fair election, bearing in mind that it's very unique? We've never done a pandemic poll on this scale. So do you think that they're going to get it right? And what are the areas that you think are probably going to be most tricky?
Look, I think the IEC, firstly, we've got to applaud the IEC. In the continent, the IEC is actually the best Electoral Commission. It's one of the EMBAs that all other African countries actually look to when they conduct elections. A lot of lessons are learned from the Electoral Commission of South Africa as far as elections are concerned. And we have seen in the last year, and even some in this year, in some parts of Africa, they have had elections that were free, that were fair, that were credible. And I believe that the IEC, given the fact that the IEC sets the standard, they set the tone on the continent, they will be able to actually deliver these elections in a manner that is free and that is fair. A big concern which political parties have, obviously, has to do with the issue around access to being able to campaign. A lot of political parties, we know that in South Africa, a lot of political parties go through processes where they go through rallies, or they go to stadiums, and they have voters there, and they rally people to their course toward an election. The only really big concern this time around is that political parties need to find creative ways to be able to reach out to people without necessarily congregating them in one area.
And talk to me a little bit more about that canvassing of support. You know, you speak to some political parties and they say, well, we've been doing it already. But the concern is that the smaller political parties might actually battle to canvass during these times. Do you share that concern?
Look, I think we need to remember that a local government election is a much more localized election, right? So people vote for a candidate who is within their locality, within their ward. And by virtue of that, one is of the impression then that it should be easier for smaller political parties to campaign for support. A ward election takes place in a particular ward for a particular candidate. And if you set your structures out correctly, those ward candidates would be able to actually literally go door to door and be able to canvass for support within their localities. So I do not believe that that would really be a challenge. It is my view that political parties just need to be creative about it, think outside of the box. It's not as bad as if it would have been a national and provincial elections. These elections are localized. They're much more easier to be able to reach people to actually come out to the polls and vote for you.
There's an Ipsos survey out today. It's predicting that the ANC might get only just over 49% of the vote, and the DA and the EFF in double figures, but still under 20. What are your predictions and what is your sense of where the electorate is going? First of all, in terms of voter turnout, and secondly, in terms of perhaps appetite for change, because we know there's a huge amount of unhappiness on the ground with the way municipalities are run. Do you get a sense that this could be a pivotal poll?
It is absolutely an important poll. Voter turnout is likely to be low, obviously because of implications around the COVID-19 situation. So definitely voter turnout is going to be one of those things that are going to be on an all-time low. And with regards to the ANC and support, I think we did notice that in 2016 already, they had already taken a dip. And I do have an expectation that that will continue to be the trend, even for this particular election. There's been a lot of issues that have plagued the ANC administrative as a political party in the administration. The issue of salaries that are not being paid, staff salaries that are not being paid. There's issue around lack of trust, the conflict, or rather the perpetual conflict between the Secretary General and the President of the ANC. So all of those things are actually things that play to the fact that people are starting to lose confidence in the ANC, as it were. Another factor that needs to be taken into account is that more and more young people are participating in these elections, and one gets the sense that they want to be able to hold people, leadership, to account, and currently they've not been able to do that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of those elections that we've seen a spike in the number of independent candidates, meaning therefore that people are now actively searching for alternative people that can actually represent their interests in municipalities. We are likely going to see an increase in support for the EFF as well. I'm not too certain, though, that the DA is going to enjoy the very same support, particularly because in the previous election that we saw, the national and provincial election, we saw that they took a dip with the Vryheids Front gaining some of those losses that the DA had suffered. So the DA also has had a number of challenges. There's been a lot of talk, corridor talk, about the DA's policies as far as empowering some of their black candidates, and we've seen we've seen what looked as though it was the shedding of black people from within the political party. So, Phumzile Van Dam, a few councillors in the city of Tshwane, there's been quite a lot. And I do expect that they would be losing some of the support also, not only to Vryheids Front, but also to Action SA. That has also taken some of their most powerful and prominent leaders. So the DA will also be taking a dip. And only the EFF, in my view, is going to get an increase. Action SA is going to surprise us in the elections. PA as well. I think if we've looked at the previous by-elections that we've seen that there's been a bit of a shift in the city of Johannesburg as far as the People's Alliance is concerned. So one gets the sense that smaller political parties, if they're strategic, they're going to be able to make gains from these particular elections.
Yeah, and it certainly is going to be a very interesting 7 or so weeks in the run-up to the poll, and then beyond. From what you're saying, we could be heading for lots of coalitions, which is always interesting politics. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Great to chat to you, Lulu White, founder and CEO of the Elections Management Consulting Agency of Africa.